Now, so most of you should have gotten an email from me yesterday. So if you haven't, if you could give me your email address, and I'll actually send you an email. I'll send you a copy of that email. So, of course, we're doing the second half of Cisco, the CCNA 2 course, and we're also doing all of Cisco 3 in this subject this semester. And so if you already did Cisco this year in semester 1, you won't actually need to register for the Cisco 2 class. And yeah, you would have had the access tokens on this because I did a mail merge for everyone. And so, of course, everyone will need to register with the Cisco 3 class because that's only just been created the other day. And so that will be required. All right. So, of course, when we did the class earlier this year, we did up to Chapter 9 in Cisco 2. And so we're starting at Chapter 10 now. And so this week we're talking about LAN security concepts and configuration. Next week we'll be talking about wireless LAN concepts and configuration, and then we'll get into the routing concepts and also static routing, and then we'll do troubleshooting static and default routes. Then we actually go on to the Cisco 3 course, and that starts on OSPF, and then a bit of security, and then some NAT and WAN concepts, things like that, and so on and so on. And so when it comes to assessment, it's pretty much the same as what you've done previously. There's a mid-semester theory and practical test, and of course the end of semester theory and practical test. And so that's the plan so far. And so, yeah, as I said, this is what I turned into a mail merge and sent the emails out with yesterday, except I think I did a little bit of editing somewhere in between the versions of files. Anyway, so that's the schedule file. Now, on the Cisco site, so this is the same class, as I said, as what we had at the beginning of the year. We did the 9 chapters, and then we did testing for semester 1. And now we're in semester 2, so I've got that schedule file that we just looked at there. Also, I've got the WebEx session details there, but of course that's pretty much irrelevant for you guys because you obviously know how to connect into it. And so, again, on chapters 10 through the 13 is the first module group. And so I've actually got slides and demonstrations, and so the demonstration files are already in that folder, as well as the PowerPoints for the 4 chapters. And I've actually got the 4 videos linked here as well, so for the 4 chapters, so you can get to it from here. I haven't done a lot with 14 through to 16. I haven't recorded chapter 16 yet, but that should be done in the next week. And so I'll probably in the next day or so, I'll actually put the slides at least in there soon. The demonstration won't have been done yet. And so this is the website, and of course, practice exams, and then into skills exam, course feedback, and final exam, of course, of what we'll be doing at the end of the semester. These one, mid semester. Sorry for this one. Now, so that was pretty much it. Has anyone got any questions on where we're going for this? So, of course, I'm assuming for most of you people, lockdown is a non-issue. You're doing it from home anyway. So it'll be pretty much the same throughout the semester for you guys, no matter what happens with the COVID situation. And so, so we'll carry on with this 5:30 to 6:30 group through the entire semester. Those ones that I do at 10 and 12, I've labelled them lockdown. They're only because we're locked because of the lockdown that's been about. And I haven't got official word yet, but apparently I think you got an email from Saeed saying that next week is going to be external as well for everyone. So that's the plan so far. All right, so getting to chapter 11. which of course is basically the LAN security implemented. I've got a very small little packet tracer here, and so I've got a switch with a hub plugged into it and 2 hosts. And so, of course, the reason for that is for port security. And so basically, I hadn't rolled it all the way up. So I think the switch at the moment is pretty much blank. I just do in show run. I don't think there's any config on it as far as I remember. No, it's all very default as it is. And so we're going to add some port security. And so with the port security, I'm going to just do it to the first 2 ports because they're the only ports that are in use at the moment. I'm going to make both of those ports access ports, and I'm going to do some port security. So, of course, this command here turns port security on. You have to do it, even though you may well have done this option here. That's configuring port security, but you actually need to have this separate command there, otherwise it won't be on. And so that's basically, that turns it on. This just modifies how it behaves. And so, of course, I'm just doing the violation at the moment. So if you breach your MAC address maximum, it will actually, in this case, I've commented out protect, and I've got it in restrict. And so restrict from memory is where it actually sends a console message when there's a violation. It blocks the MAC address that is in violation, but the other one can still continue on. Of course, the default behavior is shut down, so as soon as there's a violation, bang, the port is closed. And so protect is much the same as restrict, other than it doesn't do the console message. Now, I might actually need to set up a remote console to be able to get it to work. I've actually never gotten a message on the console on Packet Tracer, but anyway, it certainly has worked on the real machines. So what I might do first, now this is a DHCP server, and these should be clients, and they should have their addressing, and they do. Let's just test that it works, that we don't have any troubles, because as soon as I apply this configuration, it actually will cause problems, because we've got more than one address. Oh, come on, thank you. So go there, pinging the server, works nicely. This one works as well. It's a switch, it's happy to forward frames. Security, not my problem at the moment. And so that's working nicely. Now, of course, other than the violation behavior, all the rest of the settings for port security are actually default. And so the maximum is going to be set to 1. And so, of course, this having 2 hosts, one of them is not going to work. And so, of course, before you can actually do port security, it needs to be an access port. So anyway, let's apply that to the switch. No error messages. We can do show port security. And so as you can see, the maximum count for MAC addresses is 1. Currently, there's been none communicate, and there's been no violations. And of course, they're both in restrict mode when it comes to the action. So what we can do, I'll get that ping back in my buffer. Let's do the ping again. Oh, I don't need the ping in the buffer, do I? And so first host, working nicely. Second host, this should not work. And it does not seem to be working. So it's behaving as I expected, which is always nice. Let's wait for the last timeout. So now if we go back to that switch, We up arrow that command, and you'll see that now port 1 still only has a maximum of 1. It's got 1 valid address, and it's had 4 violations. So there's 4 ping packets were each their own violations. And so it's working as advertised, but of course, if you want both hosts to talk, that as advertised is not great. And so here I'm just doing a little bit of further configuration of port security. So here I'm setting the maximum to 2. I'm also letting it learn MAC addresses dynamically, but then keep track of them, which of course is this sticky. And so it will learn the dynamic address and then actually put it into the configuration. Now I'm also doing a shutdown and no shutdown, and that's just to reset the counters on that port as well. And so let's have a go at this and see if this improves the situation. Copy, paste. So we've had a shutdown and a no shutdown on those configs, and so as you can see, it's changed it down and then changed to up again. Let's do the show port security. So so now the maximum count for that port is 2. Nothing's communicated yet, so it's 0, and we've had 0 violations. So, oh, wait a minute. Oh, now it's just finished its spanning tree. So let's do the ping again. This is the first host, so this should work nicely. The second host didn't work last time. Hopefully it'll work this time, and hey presto, it does. So let's have a look at that port security settings again, or sorry, statistics. And so as you can see, we've got a maximum MAC addresses of 2, which is what we've got, and there have been no violations. And so basically you can play around with the way it behaves. So of course, when it comes to port security, most workstations only ever need 1. You might need one if you might need extra if maybe you got an IP phone on the same cable. Also, virtualization can cause problems with it, and so if you've got virtualization with bridged interfaces, you will have to add to your maximum count there as well. Otherwise, it'll get blocked. I've certainly had trouble with that at TAFE when it comes to virtualization. I never use bridged if I don't have to. All right, so that's port security. It's not particularly complex, but yeah, just a couple of things to remember, and the major one is you've got to turn it on. All right, so the chapter then moves on to Dhcp Snooping. Now, of course, the port security, I suppose I didn't really mention. In chapter 10, it was talking about where you overflow the MAC address table. And then, of course, the behavior of switches after you do that is, of course, they flood every frame out every port because they don't necessarily know where the destinations are. And so then whoever that hacker may be will see all the traffic going around, and they'll be able to either eavesdrop on the traffic or maybe even man in the middle of it. And so that's what this port security is good for, as well as a few other attacks maybe. Now, Dhcp snooping, of course, is if you've got a rogue Dhcp server installed. It can be a denial of service attack where it gives out addresses that don't work with the rest of your network, and so they won't be able to talk to anyone else. Or it could be, again, a man-in-the-middle of attack. And so you've got this rogue Dhcp server, and it will actually give out valid addresses, except for it will actually set itself as the gateway, and so all the hosts will send all their packets to that rogue Dhcp server, and again, man-in-the-middle attack or eavesdropping or whatever it might be. And so that's where the Dhcp snooping comes in. So the configuration for that is turn it on globally. You can also turn it on per VLAN. You need to as well. And then, of course, if you actually have a Dhcp server plugged in, you don't want to block that. And so you actually have to say, oh, by the way, we trust this port for a DHCP server. So what I thought I might do first is actually configure it without the trust. And so I've turned on DHCP snooping globally, and then I'll turn it on for VLAN 1 because it's the only VLAN we've got running. Okay, so if we do a show run, you can see the two commands there, one global and one for VLAN 1. And of course, these are the configurations. Oh, actually, I didn't show you that the sticky works. Now, for some reason on Packet Tracer, it only, even though I've pinged with both, it seems to only storing one sticky address. I'm not sure why, but anyway. But as you can see, here's what turns the sticky on. And of course, this you look at, and that's in, of course, that's the running config. So when it comes, there's no other DHCP snooping in there. But if we do show start, just to get back to the port security, oh, I've done a copy run start there. So it actually is now in the startup config. And so you actually need to do a copy run start to actually cement those learned MAC addresses in permanently. I'm going to say the running config will be there as long as the switch is running continuously, but as soon as it's powered off, it will have lost them. And so if you really want to be paranoid, I suppose, or thorough, you can do that. So I don't have the DHCP snooping trusted in this port here. So let's actually go and try and renew our IP addresses, and that should fail. And it has. 169 number's no good to me. So static DHCP. And it's failed as well because we don't have a trusted port. All right, so let's put all of the config in. And now, so we've got this trusted command in there. So we could do a show run again, I suppose, just to make sure it's in there. And it is. So let's try and get the DHCP running again. All right, static DHCP. Now it's working. And that one's working as well. So all is happy with the world. Now we can actually do show IP DHCP snooping. So copy, paste. And so as you can see here, the two active ports that are there is we don't trust port 1, but we do trust port 2. I haven't done any throttling or anything like that. And so, yeah, and it's, of course, it's enabled for VLAN 1 because it's the only VLAN we got. So that's some good information. Now, also, in the chapter, it also did ARP, I think it's called Dynamic ARP Inspection, DAI. And so basically from here, you can turn it on for the VLAN. Now, DAI depends on DHCP snooping being there as well. Of course, I've already got it in there, so I don't have to do it again. So I think all the examples in the chapter showed IP DHCP snooping being on as well, but it already is, so I don't need it again. And so I'm just turning it on for VLAN 1, and I'm making this port a trusted port. Copy. Paste. Again, no errors. So let's do show IP ARP inspection. How big is this output? Okay. And so I haven't actually done any extra fancy settings, so source MAC validation or destination MAC validation, which I could have done, but I've just sort of done a very default setup. So it actually gives you statistics for each of the VLANs, and so It's enabled and it's active, but we're not doing ACL logging. How many packets have been forwarded and permits and so on. So yeah, so you get a whole pile of statistics from that. All right, so of course, basically what the inspection does is it will actually compare the MAC address entries that are in the header of the frame to the MAC addresses that are in the body of the frame, and so in the data section. And so just make sure that it's all valid and above board. It's not giving any bad information there, basically. And so, by no means perfect, but you know, it's better than nothing. And so again, it's good for MAC address spoofing and things like that. Okay, so the last thing is Bpdu Guard. Now, of course, I can't actually do any Bpdu Guard on this port because we've got a hub there, and so you need to have it in port fast mode, which is unwise for a port between a switch and a route and a hub. And so I'm only going to do it on fast Ethernet 0/2, which is the service connected to. And so I think that's already been set, but why not? And so basically it needs to be switch port mode access. Then you need to do spanning tree port fast. And so there's a couple of things that come from that. Is, of course, port fast means that when the link comes up, it will go straight from disabled to forwarding, and spanning tree won't get in the way. As you've probably noticed, when you connect a port on a switch, it will often show as yellow or orange or amber, and until typically something like 50 seconds. And so it's actually going through spanning tree, making sure there's no switching loops involved. And so port fast actually turns off spanning tree on that port. And so whenever you use port fast, you will actually get a warning saying, hey, be careful with this. If you put it on a port other than a host port, the bad things can happen. You can get loops and things won't work. Now, activating Bpdu Guard, there's two options. You can do it on a per port basis, and that's the command for that, Bpdu Guard enable, or you can actually make it a default setting, which is what the curriculum prefers. And so spanning tree port fast Bpdu Guard default. So that basically says every port that's been set to port fast, I don't want to see BPDUs on. And so that's, and of course, default means that's for all ports that have port fast, basically. And so, of course, BPDU packets are, of course, frames, sorry, are of course what bridges send out to one another for spanning tree protocol. But of course, by making it port fast and switch port mode access, you're saying this is not a bridge at the other end of this cable. It's actually a host. And so BPDU packets have no business coming from a normal host. And so that's actually someone probably trying to attack the network. And so we'll disable that port. So that's the plan with that. So we'll put this configuration into the switch again. And so, as you can see, you do get that warning every time you use port fast. And so, as I said, use with caution. And it says port fast has been configured on fast Ethernet 0/2, but will only have effect when the interface is in a non-trunking mode. And so, of course, it's in a non-trunking mode, so it will affect it. And then we've gone and made this a port fast port. We've made it a port fast port, and so of course this is looking out for those kinds of ports, and will run Bpdu Guard. So if you do show spanning tree summary, it will actually give you a summary of spanning tree data, as the name suggests, and one of them is portfast Bpdu Guard. Default is on, or enabled, sorry. Yeah, so that is pretty much the configurations from chapter 11. And so that's all gone well enough.